Hello, 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 hello. I'm going to keep saying hello until something happens. That's great. Oh, look, I've got straight away colours on my face. So how are we this afternoon? There's 5 of you out there apparently at the moment, which is nice to see. Can you say hello and then we'll know who's there, know if you're the regulars or somebody new passing by. And as usual, for those of you watching on playback, this is live. So this is where we tend to have meandering chit chat through a topic. Usually it's dowsing related or very centrally dowsing. Today we'll see where it goes. Some of it's going to be about dowsing. Hello, Steve. Good to see you. Very good. Anna, hello, all the way from Tasmania. Fantastic. So we'll see how it goes today, but this is very much meandering chit chat. And if that's not what you're after, then hopefully by the time you've come across this one on playback, there may be an edit somewhere also on the channel. There is a playlist with edited highlights from the lives, which are usually about 10-15 minutes. So that shows you how much of a chit chat it is. Hello, Tom. Good to see you. David, good to see you. Well done. Jenny, hello. Nice to see you. Yes, David, I loved your comment about the consciousness video that went up at the end of last week. Keith, good man, good man. I thought you might be online. That's very good to see you. So David, yes, the consciousness video, when I was interviewing Ian, and we'll talk a little bit more about this video later on. When I was interviewing Ian, I could feel my brain literally beginning to ache with some of the concepts. But I love it. I love all that stuff. It's so nice. Tess, great to see you. Hello there. Oh, good, Jenny, good. What did you think of it? Did it stretch your mind at all, Jenny? I hope it did. So we'll touch on that video anyway. And while you're there, actually, I just noticed that somebody's clicked the thumbs up button underneath the video screen. If you'd like to click that up, then it gives YouTube some great feedback that you like what we're doing on the channel. So that's wonderful. Yeah, good. Thank you, Jenny. Good. Yeah, he's a great guy. So, excuse me. What we're going to meander our way through today. JF, good to see you. What's that mean, David? We're going to meander our way through any questions that you have. Any questions that you have about dowsing or dowsing related stuff. There's a couple of you that are in the hey Stevie, good to see you, good to see you. It's a shame you haven't made any of the meditation sessions as yet, Stevie. Hopefully you can. Maybe the next one, which will be first Monday of August. So yes, yeah, I was going to say some of you are on the house healing mentoring groups. In fact, we have people there from the first year who started last year and the second year, which is the current year. Martin, good to see you. Yes, wonderful down there in Devon. Good to see you. That's great to have you along, Martin. That's nice. And if you've got any, if those of you that are on the mentoring groups, if you've got any specific questions to do with that mentoring, what we're covering in those sessions, drop the question in. Hello, Sally. And we'll see. I mean, if it's too detailed and too very much focused on the mentoring subjects, then we'll kind of cover it in a different way. But if it's broad enough for everybody else to benefit from, then we'll cover it off here, which is the whole point. So Hilda, woo, good to see you from Macau. Some ungodly time of night in Macau. What time is it? Let us know. I'm always fascinated by what time it is. I know that for Anna, bless her, it's gone midnight down in Tasmania. And some of you regulars will recognise if Digsy comes online, Digsy Dugan, or he's in Australia. So if he comes online and is on the chat, at 10:30 p.m, that's not so bad. Then for Digsy, it's usually because his little one has woken him up and he's spending some time with the little one. Anyway, so that's Jasper. There you go. You're going to say hello? You're going to say hello this time? Yeah, well, that's nice. That's good. That's for Tom. There you go. Summer, hello. Hello. So let's get on with it. So as I say, usual thing, drop in any questions as we go along. It's not like, not specific questions, but any questions you want, drop them in and we'll come to them. I don't think Billy will be with us as moderator. JF is a moderator, and if he feels like moderating or sticking the occasional link in as we mention it, for example, JF, if you don't mind, could you dig out the link for the consciousness video, which should be the last one on the recent videos on my channel? So if you could just pop that in there, because that, I'd like to talk about it a little bit. Now, if you haven't seen it, I think a lot of you have seen it already. Even though most of the subscribers on this channel, I think it's fair to say, come at the content from a very spiritual orientated perspective. So most of the people on the channel that are subscribed and find, thank you very much, JF, wonderful, good man. Most of the people find the content and come at it all through meditation, and obviously we stress meditation and mindfulness as part of the way to get dowsing effectively. Some of you are a little bit more scientifically orientated, but it's very clear from the numbers, the viewing numbers of who's hit that latest video, that really the scientific stuff doesn't actually interest you that much. Perhaps, I don't know, or maybe it's just an aberration of the algorithm on YouTube, I don't know. But I personally find the scientific perspective on the experiences that we have from our spiritual perspective as we go through this life, go through this reality, I find the scientific perspective absolutely fascinating. And as David said, it is a bit brain bending when you're trying to keep up with somebody that is very across the whole scientific perspective of looking at reality. But what's great about it, I feel, and why I'm urging you, if you haven't already watched it, at some point after the live or the next few days to watch it, is because it's rather like watching something like that and hearing somebody that's an expert in their field, as Ian is. But Ian Jameson is sometimes on the chat here, but he's a trained physicist and works now with artificial intelligence, creating artificial neural networks, and he's an engineer. But he also has a very, very spiritual perspective on life. He's had some very spiritual experiences, and he was actually taught by a fellow called David Bohm, who was a leading quantum physicist, sort of in the, I guess, in sort of the second wave of quantum physicists, if we think of Einstein and Niels Bohr and people like that, whose names I forget, around the turn of the century, making the big waves to start with. And there are other people like David Bohm that came along a little bit later. And a lot of these scientists were, despite their logical approach, or maybe even because of it, because of what they were able to do in terms of actually relating to their realities and trying to understand it, a lot of these scientists were actually very spiritual people, which often comes as a surprise, and it is fascinating. So to get to the point that I was trying to make is that when you listen to somebody like Ian, even if science isn't your thing, what it does is it obviously gets the old cogs working, and it does sort of take your perceptions of how you think about yourself and how you think about reality and all the daily stuff that we might get bogged down in. And not only does it put that daily stuff well and truly into perspective, because we're talking about concepts that are far, massive concepts of the meaning of life, really. So it really does put the little day-to-day stuff into perspective. But it also, more importantly, it allows you to shift your perspective, shift your focus on everything, I mean, pull your perspective right out and look somewhere else. It's like you thought that you understood who you were and what you're capable of as a human being. No. It's completely different, because actually science says there's far more to you than actually we even knew for all these hundreds and hundreds of years, if we take linear time as existing. So let's not get too caught up in our sort of picking apart what he's saying, because that's not really what I want to do. But what I do want to refer to give you an example. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why that was held for review, but yeah, One of the concepts that Ian touches on is another scientist's theory that actually reality, or one of the many theories about reality that science holds, is that we could, in fact, be inside a huge black hole. Now, this, I mean, obviously, let's not go into that just yet, but this that I was going to read out touches on that. So that's wonderful for Jenny to mention it. And I'm going to read this, which is actually a little bit of a transcript from the video. And what's so lovely about this and being able to do this today for you guys is that somebody who has just started showing up and leaving comments on that video, and I'm assuming they've subscribed, they obviously have a massive a scientific approach to their being, but equally, like Ian, very spiritual. So this person has left a lot of comments under the video and replied to some other people's comments. And what he's done, he's actually done a little bit of a transcript, and I'm assuming he's transcribed it for his own benefit, for his own research, but it's enabled me to actually just highlight a couple of things that again, Jenny's touched on here. So I'm going to read some of this stuff. If you get bored, I'll see that all the numbers will disappear down to zero. There's 25 of you online at the moment. Let's see how many there are at the end of this little abstract. So this is Ian talking. I'm just going to read some of what Ian was talking about, and then we'll come back and look at why I think it's really interesting. So part of this, he says, Ian is saying, right. So on this, he was talking about the ways that we optically process information about our seeming external reality, right? So he says the eye, it actually forms a hologram. So the image that we're taking up actually forms a hologram on the surface of the eye. And the brain extracts from it a two-dimensional layer of information. The eye creates a representation of that information to the best of its ability, combined with other senses of space and time. So I'm paraphrasing a little bit, so hopefully you can still follow this. What business is good for you? I'm not going to take specific dowsing questions, Verzad, but if you want to drop me a line, use the contact form on my website. And if it's appropriate, if it's something that you really want to be, I see where you're getting, I see why you think, yes. So when I say dowsing Q&A, it's not so much dowsing and I'll do a live. So it's not like a live card reading. But if you want more information about that, or you're stuck where to go in your life, drop me a thing and I'll reply to you. There's no cost in that, and we'll see what we get as an answer, okay? But I see why you're asking the question. Okay, so let's go back to this. So, Ian's saying, you actually get a hologram on the surface of the eye and extracts from it a two-dimensional layer of information. So that hologram is a two-dimensional layer of information. The eye creates a representation of that information to the best of its ability, combined with the other senses of space and time. And it also integrates with time. It creates a representation in the brain, which is only one way of looking at it, which is consistent. But they're not the real reality. So what he's saying is that the brain is processing the two-dimensional hologram that's on the eye, arrives at the eye. The brain pulls information out of that hologram, but it's not the real reality. It's interpreting within the brain. We project it outwards. So that's the idea, because we're working with space-time. There's actually a holistic universe out there, but our senses, remember, it comes as a whole. So the universe, the image, the information on the eye comes at, everything's there. All the information is there, a hologram, but we, out of our senses, create a space-time out of it. That's one of the most recent ideas in physics, the holographic model. And he pointed out that I was asking him a question. When I say about people having their own worlds and living in their own worlds and working by their own rules within those worlds, he was explaining to me that in talking about it in that sense, I'm still working with a space-time framework, but from a scientific point of view, all of the information is there and we extrapolate out of that information. Yes, exactly, Robin. That's exactly it. That is precisely it, because he goes on. So if you have a hologram If you break a little piece of the hologram film, you shine a light, you get the whole image. This is the nature of a hologram, is that when you break a hologram, you can see the whole hologram in a little piece of broken hologram, right? Of that broken piece. So what he's saying is it's exactly the same. If you break a little piece of the hologram film, you shine a light, you get the whole image. Each little piece of the hologram is a separate consciousness, but we're all part of that one consciousness. So we all view it like a mountain has many sides. Now this saying of the mountain having many sides is an ancient saying in Eastern philosophy. We're all viewing the same mountain. We might have different views of the mountain. We might have different views of the hologram. It's the Eastern religion thing about 10,000 jewels, 10,000 being a number in ancient thinking just means everything, because it's a massive number in those days. So if you shine a light in a room of 1,000 jewels, 10,000 jewels, you'll see everything if you shine a light into that room, because the reflections are echoed everywhere, right? So that's the thinking. So when they talk about the universe being 10,000 jewels, it's like a hologram, which is what Robin is saying. So if you look at the mountain from many different sides, then each one of us looks at the same mountain, but we're seeing a different perspective. Each one of us with a life experiences looks at the same thing, but sees something different. Okay? Bearing in mind all of this stuff that is in that two-dimensional hologram on the eyeball comes out of the quantum soup of possibility. So don't forget that. We're still part of that quantum soup. Yeah, I mean, and actually he goes on. I haven't got much more to say on that for this group now. Watch the video, because actually he just goes on to say the hole in your eye converts the hologram into a space. Let's just say a space representation in the back of your retina. What it does a one-to-one correspondence, and you see in your retina what is supposedly out there, but it's actually abstracting some of the information from the world outside. And he goes on that David Bohm, in other words, his teacher, pointed out that if it wasn't for lenses in our eyes and telescopes and things like that, we wouldn't see the universe as we see it. We've evolved to see it in space and time, right? And that's the last thing. And that's where the transcript ends. And I'm very grateful to that person that transcribed it and commented on the video. But fundamentally, Billy, you're there. Oh, good to see you. Don't worry about being late at all. Good to see you. I'm aware that I haven't really posted advanced warning and stuff, so there we go. But we were just talking about seeing life differently, and in this instance, hello, Brad. Good to see you, and Wendy. Ah, lovely. And seeing life differently, and in this instance, seeing it from that scientific perspective. And who knew? Well, indeed. So that's an interesting point, JF. And that's a question that I will ask Ian. Because obviously, if we're extracting the visual information, I mean, he does say using all the senses of the body to create the space-time environment. So, excuse me, this is why, I guess, that blind people are able to actually utilize their other senses and create the same space-time environment in which to function, but obviously they're just not seeing the information that's gathered, that's coming visually, because obviously the hologram is only containing the visual element, so that element of the lens. So it's a good point, and I don't know the answer completely. The eyes are only one sense, yeah. So but given that we are so visually orientated, it's really, really interesting. And we talk about seeing things differently and experiencing things differently. But yeah, I just think that's really exciting as a concept. So that's that. If you've got any other thoughts on that, that would be great. Great to see those. I'm only laughing because I'm thinking, like, well, if we carry on at this speed, I'm going to be sitting here twiddling my thumbs, and you'll all get bored. Just going through my notes. I mean, that's what I mean. If we plough through my notes at this speed, we'll have nothing to discuss. Yes, we will. So let me just come back to quite where I am. Yeah, okay. So the key thing, irrespective of whether oh, the Mandela effect. Do you know what? Yeah, I can't remember what that is. Somewhere, if it's easy to summarize, that would be great. Oh, right. Okay, Wendy, that's good. Yes. Okay. Oh, that's the reptilian pathways. Fantastic. And again, that goes through to system 1 thinking as well, doesn't it? Okay, fantastic. All right. So when Ian was trying to get me to think and to illustrate the fact that we are not separate. We are not separate from the soup that we are created from, and we are not separate from each other. Okay, so and we know this in spiritual terms. We always say it. We've said it so many times on a Monday afternoon. But that, to me, it really, and that conversation really helped to solidify some of these thoughts in my mind, because I don't know about you, but I find that I can kind of go, yeah, I get that, yeah, I get that, yeah, I understand that. We're all one, we're all that. And sometimes you can experience it, obviously if we go into the lovely meditations and we get to that state of oneness and we feel that, and the first time it happens, it's a bit of a shock. Well, I thought it was. And then you go, oh yeah, that was fantastic. That was a real wow. And then you get on with your life and you forget these things again. And for me, and it might be just, based on my sort of practical outlook on life, I suppose, but that's why I find something like that comes up and is described like that, it kind of goes like, yes, of course, that's exactly why we're all connected and we're all one. Yeah, we are. And the other thing that was really, really interesting and helped me go, aha, yes, of course, was how Ian described this very thing that Anna has mentioned here. We're all vibrational beings in the quantum field. Because what Ian went on to talk about was the fact that we have evolved space-time. So we exist emanating from the quantum field of existence of all things. That's okay, Billy. Stick with us though, because I think there's still some relevance here. But what we're talking about is a video that JF has linked to a little bit further up the chat. So it's a video from a scientific point of view that was posted at the end of last week. And what Ian touched on again in that was that we've evolved as beings, physical beings, that utilize the facet of the quantum soup of possibility in a manner that sits upon space and time. And what he said, which is obvious really, and which I think we've discussed in different terms in the past, is that there's nothing to say, and there's nothing to say in science, that there aren't other beings, there aren't other evolved beings within that emanate from the quantum soup that actually experience and have evolved to experience reality emanating from the quantum soup without space-time as their processing mechanism, right? Okay, so I love that, because what it said to me, and it didn't drop when I was speaking to him, the penny didn't drop, but what it made almost tangible for me was, well, of course, so what are angels and archangels? They all emanate from the quantum field of possibility, and they are processing their experience from a different perspective of space-time. They have the ability to interact with space-time because they interact with us. And and equally, we probably have an ability to interact with things on a non-space-time. Now, of course, we know in the spiritual experience that we do and can interact with everything on a non-space-time basis. So when we start to look at, and I guess all it's doing is saying it to my practical mind, well, how does this work? And to me, it offers a solution of how maybe we can interact with these angels and archangels. And to me, when the penny dropped when I was editing the video, tightening up a little bit, it was like, well, of course. It's so simple. Yeah, exactly. So, absolutely, Anna. Yeah. I suppose the thing I was going to sort of kind of pull out of your comment there was the term vibration, because we all understand what vibration means in all of its references across the spiritual spectrum, and yet, what does it really mean? And again, this is, I suppose, my wanting to understand very specifically, and I get a little bit kind of tied sometimes and attached to what does that actual word mean, as you know, when with my frustration with labels. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, exactly, that's right. So it's that. And this is the reason why, Anna, as well, actually, and for those of you that are doing the house healing course, this is why we start, or rather, I'll rephrase that. This current year's mentoring students, that sounds very pompous, but you know what I mean. We've started by looking at quite a lot of self-development work and the nature of the quantum soup. And what I'm trying to encourage you to do as part of your homework, and again, I know this doesn't apply to all of you on the list, but speaking specifically to them, and you can put this into your own lives, those of you that aren't on the course. It's important that you analyze and do the healing work so that actually when you start to interact with the energy of place and you start to build up your own client list and come into contact with your own clients, that you're actually vibrating on it, vibrating, well, we're going to use that word, but you're actually resonating at a higher level, which means that the clients that you receive are not right down in the depths of the lowest of the low vibrations, which are really, really quite painfully low. So this is why the nature of clients and the nature of the work changes as you do more and more self-development work, basically. Now, this is not to say that there are not house healers and there are not people out there that don't work in the lowest of the low vibrational levels. I'm not saying it's the lowest of the low in a derogatory manner. I'm saying in terms of accessing energies and doing the work which changes the environment in which you experience life. Because what we're saying is that everything changes. So as you change, you emerge beyond. It's not about living in one reality. It is not about living in one reality. As you change your vibration, everything around you changes its vibration because you are part of the creative process. It's not about leaving things behind, leaving people behind, or leaving any aspect of this vibrational quantum soup behind, but the truth of be the change you want to be is that as you be the change and you step into that new vibrational frequency, as you know, this is classic Joe Dispenza work, you know, all of you will recognize this. You emit the new frequency and everything else changes with it. But it's not a negative but. There are always aspects of reality, no matter how high we take our vibration or want to take our vibration. If we want to live at the highest of the high vibrational levels and be communicating with archangels all day long, then that's great. But we won't be here in a three-dimensional space because we can't sustain that. I would dispute that even the Dalai Lama or any great Buddhist monk. Now, I know you're probably all going, "Oh, I don't agree with that," but given the system we've got at the moment, that's my stand. I suspect that, there might be one or two great yogis and one or two great, fantastic, amazing practitioners, perhaps, that can sustain it and remain in a physical form. But what I'm getting at, where I'm going with this, and being a little bit cheeky with it at the same time, where I'm going with this is that there's always going to be downsides. We're not able to sustain that amazing connection all the time. Most of the time, most of us can't. So, and when we hit one of these kind of little dips in the vibrational field, or in our vibrational awareness, or just in the nature of what we're living through, then we may feel that, or we may experience that as like, okay, so we do something stupid, we do something that we regret, and it's very easy, because of our human conditioning, to then use that instance, that little, should we say, that little trip up of wrongdoing. Let's just say it's a wrongdoing. It doesn't matter whether it was said or behavior, and it doesn't matter how wrong it was, right? It's just, we'll just take this little example, because, and you'll see where I'm going with it in a minute, because it's very easy with our human conditioning and all of our human side, all of those things that make me as Tim, all of those things of ego, and we accept that ego still exists. I say we still go through most of our life with the ego to varying degrees. Obviously, we try to reduce its influence upon us if we're following that spiritual path. But all of those things that make me, and usually these are things that are trying to stop us follow the spiritual path because they want us to remain unchanged, they will jump on that opportunity of wrongdoing, that wrongdoing incident, and say, see, told you, you're not as great as you think you are, or you're not, what do you think you're doing saying that, or, why did you say that? And then you get things like guilt coming in and regret coming in, and you get tied up in all this low vibration, which is just because you're listening to the bad guys. Whereas all of those little moments of dips of like where we behave like an idiot. I was going to put a word in there before I said idiot, but where we behave like an idiot, we do the wrongdoing. We do that. We say something that's silly, or we think we've said something silly, or we do something that we regret, an action that we regret. It's all as it should be, because we don't know the bigger picture. We never see the bigger picture. We never see any good that happens from what we said or what we did. We never see how it actually truly affects another person. Now, obviously, if we're talking about dropping an atomic bomb, then clearly we see the effect. I'm talking about one-to-one or group interaction of people on the emotional levels. So really, I suppose I'm talking about quite small little things within life. I'm not talking about major global events, and I'm not talking about political events. I'm talking about one-to-one interaction between ordinary, decent human beings trying to get by in life and improving their lot. And when you make a cock up just by being human, you don't see the effect on the person, where the person goes, oh, let me just think about what's happened here, and actually uses that interaction to improve their own understanding of themselves. So when we say that everything happens for a reason and everything is occurring at the right time at the right place, you could be jolly sure that it is. And so as long as we can justify and understand the motivation that made us do that wrongdoing in the first place, which is usually just a silly human thing, and it might be, you're doing your own work and it just is not, it just leads to something, then that's okay, because there's no need to ever beat ourselves up about being a bit silly or a bit stupid. So I just, yeah, okay. So good. Yeah, if anybody's got a question for me, just stick the @Tim Walter, and I can see the see the comment that's for me. I'm just picking up live lesson facepalm moment. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, okay. So let's just go on to that for a little moment, because obviously every interaction has two sides. It has the positive and the negative. We live in this duality. If the recipient is not in the space where they are able and open to perceive the growth or the learning opportunity at that time, then yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And in fact, to be honest, it's going to hurt anyway, even if you can learn from it. But okay, sorry, I'll come back to that, Tom. Okay, so yeah, I mean, okay, so I think we've covered that off, but I think that part of the sort of link there from Ian's conversation about the whole kind of hologram on there being interconnected, cascaded down to our one-to-one reality, where everything, there's a bigger picture there, the bigger picture. We're just playing out our roles, and actually we're always doing what we need to be doing. So but yeah, we can beat ourselves up. And in that process of beating ourselves up, that's what we're supposed to be doing at that time, is beating ourselves up. Why? I don't know. But if it leads to a progression or a thought or a realization or a penny drop moment, that means that we have in that moment a process of change, then that's why. And do you know what? It was actually, I've written down something on these notes. I was talking to somebody just this morning, and we were talking about the fact that change, we've already mentioned today, change in oneself is so difficult to achieve. And especially when we're talking about these sort of concepts, where we're talking about shifting our perception to enable us to see a new perspective on stuff, that enables us to see that actually we can leave it alone and move on, and therefore change. And what the conversation was this morning was that change is really difficult. But actually this guy said, well, Tim, you've heard this saying by Tony Robbins being this super coach guy. Tony Robbins, he said, change is easy. He said, change happens. Tony Robbins says, change happens in a moment, but it takes an age to wait for the moment of change. And that's the point, is that this is why change in ourselves takes so long, because it's not because the moment of change is lengthy, it's because it takes so long for us to see the point of change and then change. All right, let me catch up with these change is not difficult if you know what to do. Yeah, but you have to know what to do. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, so let me get back to Tom. Okay, regards Dowsing, I'm keen to find feminine, ideally divine mother energies. Have you ever asked this, such as with trees, with the aim of seeking to spend some time feeling nurturing outdoors? So that's obviously the question that you were referring to, Tom. Yeah, divine mother energy. Well, trees aren't really going to give you that, what you're looking. Let me answer your question. Have you ever asked this, such as with trees? Well, okay. So really, Tom. Okay, let's see if you can shift your perspective on this a moment. Doesn't mean to say that you will, and doesn't mean to say that I know where I'm going with this. But if we look at what we've talked about today, and this demands a slurp of tea, actually. Hang on, right, so. What we've been looking at today, this afternoon, here. Hello, Carol. Oh, Giddy Chris, gosh. Right, good to see you too. Dixie, you must be up with your little one. Sorry, Dave, I'm not going to do that. Right, come back to Tom. Your question. This afternoon, we've been talking about the interconnectedness of everything. And so when you search, and I know you're searching for this divine feminine energy because that's what you need in your life, and you and I know why that is. When you are searching from a spiritual level, you are looking within. And all of those aspects that don't give you that divine feminine energy in your life, or that satisfaction of the divine feminine energy in your life, the presence, that's a better word, not satisfaction, the presence of the divine feminine they are a part of you. And so you can find the divine feminine that you're seeking anywhere. But in the same way as the process of change has a lead up time to the point of change, because that's the three-dimensional time-space environment, what we want you to do is to actually generate that divine feminine, to connect to it, to connect to the divine feminine in meditation, in the deepest sense. And so if you connect to a tree, the chances are, well, yeah, I mean, you can meditate with trees, you can get all of that amazing feeling from nature that you can get. But if you're connecting to a tree, and yeah, okay, you can do it in a private space, and so therefore you can feel relaxed. Because what I was thinking was, well, if you're connecting to trees outside, then all of us, human nature, on the very 3D level of humanity, is always very, very self-conscious. And you're not going to be able to connect really as deeply as you need to. Now, this is not to say that this is something that is difficult to find. What we're saying is that this is something that you need to look for in a different way to the way that you've been looking for it. This is not probably very helpful for you, but you can get this. You can understand this. Yeah, all trees will. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And Tom has experience of talking with trees. But I know from previous conversations that Tom and I have had that there's a depth of connection and feeling that needs to be addressed, which is not really that's going to be provided by the feminine aspect of nature per se. Now, having said that, it can certainly help with opening the divine feminine or masculine. It doesn't matter when you're looking for it, because what you're looking at is reflections and echoes of aspects building up in your life. Because everything that we either are aware or perceive as a lack, or we perceive as being present, also is present in the many aspects of our lives. We talked about the 10,000 jewels. Our life, a vibration of life reflects all emotions in different layers and in different ways. So in order to bring a feminine energy closer to his core, to his heart, then Tom would be wanting to look at feminine aspects of nature, of anything, to allow those connections to be built, and therefore the wave starts and change occurs. Robin, good man. Good man. Good man. You might actually be a lady, mightn't you, Robin? Yeah, I think you are. You? Sorry, that's interesting. That was a slip of the tongue relating to calling you a good man, but that's an English phrase. But that relates into Tom's energy of male and female. You're probably a lady. Let us know where you're from there. Yes, you are on. I do apologise. Robin actually is a really nice name for a female, for a lady. Yeah, cheers, Dixie. I'll just extract myself from that earlier faux pas. I'm making more and more faux pas on the lives. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it, Tom. That's it. Exactly that. Exactly that. Oh, dear. Excellent. Yeah, you see, this is interesting, isn't it? I'm just going to go on this for a second because I was talking earlier on about. Yeah, thanks, Billy. Earlier on about saying the wrong thing or the wrong doing in terms of, maybe offending somebody or maybe upsetting somebody. And there we go. But equally, in terms of presenting something like this, presenting is a bit of a grand word, but in terms of actually doing something like this, sitting here, talking through stuff that we don't know what's going to come up. I did make some notes, but whether or not I stick to these notes is, as you know, as regulars, pretty random. But one of the things when you start off doing this sort of thing, and some of you will start to do it yourselves, and the big thing that you'll be terrified of is putting the foot in the mouth of doing that sort of thing. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, Robin's not offended. It is very funny. And those of you that were in the meditation group last Monday, it was a very interesting group. There was some learning going on for all of us, sort of behind the scenes or not so behind the scenes. And also I made quite an interesting verbal error, which was actually quite hilarious. So, the fear that we all have of, most of us have, I mean, goodness me, I don't know who doesn't, but of just basically putting yourself and being vulnerable, which is what it is. So what I'm saying is, all of you that are going to be doing this sort of thing in due course, don't worry about it, just get on and do it. Easier said than done. No, but seriously, just get on and do it, because otherwise you'll never do it. Don't sit and be worried about don't have the fear of what people think. I still have it. I still bring it to the table, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as it used to be. So, yeah. Excellent. So, Jenny, what are you thinking? Good. So any questions? We've got 10 minutes or so. Usually we run this for an hour. It's been great to see you all again. I'm so pleased that 25, 26 of you turned up today without any real warning, because I do always mean to send out more advance notice. But yeah, I know. It's not a really big deal, but I just used it as a bit of a learning opportunity. I know what I'd like to say. If we got no direct... Oh, hang on, okay. Yeah, it's a little way down there. Digsy. Yeah, that's a painful question. At the moment, it's quite miserable, which is why I've got about 3 layers on. How's it in Australia? Australia, yeah, Dixie, hey? Yeah, I know. Cool, thank you. Well, I'm going to go just finish on this little thing, and it's probably not possible for us to finish on this because this is really a subject in itself, which maybe this is what we'll talk about next week. Eh? Let's see how this goes. Because yeah, I was talking about the healing doesn't arrive in the way that we thought it might, and I was just reading here. Then it can seem, if we let it play out, that our human, doubts and fears that we've done something wrong, right? So, if we allow, if we observe our performance, unless we're in the flow and in the zone and in that space of being really tuned in and loving that link and connection to the management, which I know some of you are really capable of just slipping in there and living life from that perspective for a lot of the time. But if we're not, then we're judging ourselves. We are bringing comment and listening to the bad guys, as we said. And that leads us into this whole thing about trust and faith. And that's the topic that we're going to end on. Trust and faith. Trust and faith. These are so often repeated as words from upstairs as you're moving and changing and developing. Trust and faith. And they can be applied in so many different ways. And I'm thinking now about who's 6 degrees right now. Oh, that's quite low, Dixie, isn't it? I'm thinking now who's on the chat and ways that trust and faith can apply to so many of you in so many different ways, and not just necessarily in the spiritual perspective, trust and faith, but we're talking about this. We're talking about trust and faith in the management and in the rightness of everything. So this big spiritual platitude that's always bounced around of like everything happens at the right time. I said it myself earlier, everything happens as appropriate, even the wrongdoings. But when we're not in the flow and we're not feeling that connection, and we're feeling the frustration of life instead of this perceived separate experience of living as a human being, then that's when we doubt and we experience a lack of trust and faith. Somebody asked me fairly recently about how do I develop the faith to know that everything is all right. And I don't think I can answer that for that person. I think I can only answer that for myself, because I think I personally feel that is the nature of faith, is that it is, I don't think that faith, which is, to me, is built upon trust. You have to have trust before you can have faith. To me, that's the way I read it. I don't think that that can be taught. I think that has to be learned. And if one is looking for faith in the support from the spiritual aspect or the spiritual way of living, then if you're looking for it, then you haven't got it. Then you've formed a blockage. There is a blockage preventing you at that state. If you're looking for, I want to have the faith to be able to do X, Y, Z. If you want to use it as a support, as an assistance to go through life, then if you're looking for it, then clearly you haven't got it. And that's not to say it's derogatory. This is not a comment or a judgment. This is just an observation of the way that I see it. And I think that being asked to have trust and to have faith is one of the hardest things, of course. And this is why it's always spirit banging on about trust and faith. Spirit is always banging on about it. Good, Jenny. Good. Thank you. Good. So, interestingly, I suppose for me, when I talked earlier on at the beginning of this hour about Ian's video and about the conversation I had with Ian, and the nature of him suggesting that there would be beings that would interpret reality differently, and my light bulb moment was, for me, archangels, angels, either of those. I suppose in the way that I felt as though that gave me more surety, that gave me more confidence, trust, faith. It certainly made me feel far more grounded and solid about their presence. and all the other spiritual beings that, you know, one encounters or has encountered or, you know, can encounter. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, Chris. Yeah. Yeah, best to release doubt instead of trying to create faith. Well, indeed. Indeed. Yes, indeed. That's a very good way of putting it. Ellen, good to see you. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think so. I think you've expressed that really well, Chris. Cool. Desire not to desire, which is the same thing, isn't it, Keith? Yeah. Yeah, that's what Chris is saying. You kind of adjust, you look for the how would I express that? Anyway, but you've got it there. Fantastic. So, but you know, again, it comes back round to this perspective thing, the point of awareness, the point of perspective. Aha! But it's just spotted. I painted the walls. But it comes back round to that perspective. What was I going to say? What was I going to say? I don't know what I was going to say. I got sidetracked by the paint. Well, yes, but you know, so does yeah, exactly. So does everybody, though. David, and this is the thing, exactly, and this is why faith is built on trust. So the trust, you know, Spirit will always say to you, and you're dowsing when you do dowsing and you ask about this stuff, you probably just get trust coming through to you, and you probably go, well, yes, I know that, but and the only way that you can develop trust in the spiritual sense, or if we talk about specifically dowsing, then it is by doing the dowsing and by trying to build and trying to work, I'm saying trying, because I feel that there's so much frustration around it. And doing the dowsing and building one step at a time. I'm gonna have some more tea. One step at a time, that trust. And then you see, then it's because then you're building your confidence in yourself. But sometimes it's not about your own confidence. It's not about the fact that you're incapable of doing something. It's about you just not seeing, which is confidence. But in fact, you can't see that you can do it. I had a lady, I don't know whether I've told you this before, I had a lady that came here for a workshop, and she was an experienced dowser, and I knew that she was very sensitive, but she'd lost her trust. She'd lost her trust. And so she came to this workshop, and we did a little exercise out in the garden. I think I might have told you this already, but we did. I use, you know, we've got a couple of energy lines, earth energy lines in the garden, as you'd expect. I've got a little standing stone, so there's a couple of earth energy lines that are lined up with that, right? So I just asked the little group that was there, go, you know, let's douse, find the earth energy line. So what this lady did was, if you imagine this was my garden, this sort of shape, we were standing here. She basically walked around the path and settled here to start dowsing, bearing in mind that my standing stone was about here. And she walked down here, and absolutely nothing happened with her rods whatsoever. They didn't do a damn thing. She just walked forwards and was there. And she was like, yep, see, I can't do it. But what I pointed out to her was that what she did was she left where we were talking there. She walked around the path and stood there, which was directly in the line, in the earth energy line. And so all she did as she was walking, asking for the earth energy line, was walk along the earth energy line. And it was easy. I mean, everybody in the group then doused across this way and just showed her that she had instinctively, sensitivity-wise, picked up where the earth energy line was. She didn't even need the rods because she just did it. Oh yeah, I'll start here. And this is an example of where she just believed that she couldn't do whatever it is. So David, it's incredibly frustrating when you go through phases of losing your trust or not having it to a certain level in the first place. I know it's incredibly frustrating, but just try to work with upstairs and try to work differently, perhaps. Just try to work differently to change the way that you're doing it, because in that classic old way, hang on, I've got to come back to that in a second. In that classic old way, if we don't change anything, then nothing changes. So try it and then work at it. Billy, you're having a conversation there, but I want to butt in. What are you saying? Unless it's the 3 a.m. we're all doomed voice, then listening to my body reactions have helped me more than... Okay, yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's a classic, isn't it, JF? You know, it's the instinctive, because dowsing is only exaggerating the intuitive response, the subconscious response. And so if somebody is just automatically, subconsciously tuning into the energy and going to the spot, then they don't need the dowsing. And sometimes I have told people to stop dowsing and just go with the intuitive responses, because actually the dowsing is getting in their way of doing spirit work with their guides. Because that process, where you're nipping in and out of the logical mind, can, for some people, cut off the intuitive link to spirit. And if you want to be doing clairvoyant, clairaudient work directly with your guide, then just go with that. Don't go with the... That's the pendulum, by the way. Don't go with the dowsing, you know, for a while. And then come back to the dowsing. Because dowsing does give you a very solid framework in which to function. So I would always recommend coming back to the dowsing. But change something, work on the trust issue, and then come back to the thing that wasn't necessarily working. Okay, any last minute questions? Good, well done, Angela. Why? Fantastic. It's quite common, I think, with a lot of people. So that's good. Any last minute questions? Another hour goes by. Ah, yeah, well, it always is, my friend, Mr. David. It always is to do with childhood. That's a pleasure. I'm always interested by what comes up myself. But David, yeah, don't underestimate the fact that, you know, we live as children, and what happens in childhood is usually traumatic, and we spend the rest of our lives, if we're taking a spiritual path, trying to get over what happened in those first few years. So yeah, cool. Don't beat yourself up. You're a human being, like the rest of us, for the time being. Okay, very good. Thank you, Kenny Chris. Nice to see you all. So it's been lovely. We will be here. Well, I will be here again if you want to join me this time next week at 3:30 p.m. on Monday, whatever date it is next week, if there is such thing as next week, in as much as there may have been. Good to see you too, because I did mention you before you joined us, that you would be here if you had the little one up. So you did. Keith, this is Yorkshire tea. Yorkshire Gold. I can recommend you get some over there. Thank you, Tess. Take care. I'll finish off that email probably tomorrow for you. Yep, thank you. Good, Angela. I'm glad. I'm very pleased. Blessings to you, Ellen as well. Sally, take care. Okay, I'm going to pray. Oh, yes, thank you very much. If you did like the video, please click the thumbs up. It's all good. Bye, Tom. Good man. You are a good man. Yes, there will be one next week. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Same time, 3:30 p.m. BST, British Summer Time, here next week. I don't know what we'll be doing. Yeah, thanks to you all. Thanks to Billy and JF for the whatever that word is. What is that word? Whatever it is you've been doing. Thank you. Take care now. See you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.